also want to talk about this week's card, but before we talk about this week's card, we got to go back, right? You're on the mic for one of the greatest knockouts we've ever seen, the biggest viral moment in UFC history. So a couple days later, let us know, like, what was that experience like? Was that the greatest moment, I guess, of maybe your career?
Yeah, I think it might have been. I was there with Conor on his rise, though. So when Conor won like that second world title at Cage Warriors, it felt like something big was about to happen. And now we have time, and I can look back on that. Oh yeah, something big really did happen, and we've just seen like the biggest combat sports star emerge from that point. So, and I was close to that situation. Cage Warriors, much smaller promotion. Be on the road together, like I would have had a lot of interactions with Conor. So it's slightly different. But as a broadcaster in general, but for the UFC, I feel like I've been there with some good moments. You know, there's been some good cards. There's also been some tough nights, and just on a personal performance level. And then the last Fight Island was really tough. We as a team, the UFC live production team, had to really come together. We had now that the documentary's out, Jon Anik had this positive test, and I was having to get ready to call the pay-per-view, and that brought about a lot of emotions and a lot of workload. And then I had my own duties to be doing. So there was just so much going on last time on Fight Island that I didn't get to take much of this in. And so coming around to this, bit more space, and then I'm not sure anyone knew that we were going to get a whole night like that. And that moment was bonkers. Just talking about it with DC, I felt like I was calling a fight for a boxer. You know, Buckley was set up like a boxer, and I was thinking of ways to try and put that across, and then that kick comes. So there's nothing that, I mean, it's not like it can be scripted, but in my mind, the train of thought was not down that route at all. So everything that you saw was completely organic, you know, from a broadcast perspective. You know, I guess that's my perspective that you're asking for. So, yeah, I said some silly things, and you know, it's.
How much have you watched it back, and are you satisfied with your call?
Well, no, I'm never satisfied with any of my calls, and there are a couple of things which weren't great. And I think that there's been a couple of memes where when you say something like "that's real life ninja," there's in the truck they're probably like, oh no, and I think there's an internal filter that stops me from saying any naughty words. So, yeah, we got through that one, and yeah, listen, I think I'm going to make a T-shirt, and I'm going to sell that. I'm going to try and get I'm going to speak to Buckley's manager and see what charity would like a share of those things over to, because I'd never do anything like that. Someone thought it might be an idea, and yeah, I think that would be quite a cool gesture. So.
That'd be real cool. So put the real life ninja stuff on.
Yeah, and then sell that, and whatever charity he wants to, we'll put a share to one of those.
That'd be cool. You mentioned the documentary in UFC 251. That was all kind of irrelevant, you know, for us to see that. We hadn't seen it before that aired. So what was that week like for you, that you're cramming for potentially one of the biggest fights of the year on days' notice? Yeah,
that was tough. You know, I've been with the UFC. This is my 7th year now, so I've been calling fights for over 10 years, but it's different. It's different. And it's not just that. There was the emotion of, like, a teammate was hurting, like Anik's in a few doors down. I'm speaking to him, and he's not in a good place mentally, you know, because he doesn't know what the situation is. So, yeah, and as a team, even like with our coordinating producer, he was with him, and there was just so many unknowns, and I could sense it from the team, and we just had to pull together, you know. I was there to help Jon. Jon was there to help me. Whoever goes, goes. Like, the show goes on. But from my perspective, you know, Jon Anik is our pay-per-view guy. I was only ever going to warm that seat, and I know that I'll only ever get that opportunity if something unfortunate happens to Jon, and I don't really want it on those terms, if I'm honest. But, you know, we have to do what we have to do as a team, and yeah, I was ready to go, but I take 2 weeks to prepare for a fight card, let alone a pay-per-view. Right. I was doing it in 2 days. I didn't sleep for a couple of days, I don't think. Just trying to get it all done. It was uncomfortable, but I proved to myself the amount of work that I could turn around in a short space of time.
But no disappointment that then you crammed it all and didn't get
No,
to?
not at all. No, because that means that John wouldn't have been a part of like one of the biggest cards, and that was his gig. So, yeah, no, not at all.
This week, Ortega versus Zombie, obviously everybody's really looking forward to it. From your point of view, what's the most intriguing part about it? Whether it be storyline, technical matchup, what's the most intriguing part of this fight to you?
Well, I think they all blend into one, really, as a storyteller, which is what I consider myself to be. The whole thing about the delays in which has come before us, the kind of sideshows that have been around that, and then this massive change from Ortega. I'm fascinated to see how he wants to be a completely different version of a guy who was the best, one of the best guys in the division, but it's all change. Like, what does that mean? What are you going to look like? And Zombie's been working more closely with like Eddie Char, and like I think these guys could be quite different in the way that they come into this, which is, as a fan, fascinating. I mean, I love watching both of them, but could it be better? Great.
Nice. Last thing for me, I want to ask you about Mateus Gamrot. He seems to be all the rage. I mean, I know he's new to the UFC, but I know that you're familiar with the European scene as well. So can you tell us much about him? He seems to be all the rage behind the scene. All the Polish fighters saying, watch out for this guy. He's a superstar. So what have you seen from him?
What you got to understand is in Poland, they have millions of people watching mixed martial arts on the TV. Like, it's huge over there. And he was a star. He was a two-weight champion at KSW. He's more of a wrestler, ground and pound submission guy, but he's got skills everywhere. Norman Park, for those that can remember him in the UFC, like he had a big rivalry with him as well. And he's got the wins over him, but he wanted something more. He's been out to ATT. He's measured himself on those mats to know that he's ready for the big time. I think he really wanted to come in and crack that top 15 first fight. That's not what he's got, but at the same time, he's got to queue up like everyone else, get it done, prove it. Guram, who he's fighting, is no joke, man. That kid's got serious talent. He's on the mats with Khamzat Chimaev every day. And the wrestling thing isn't his deal. He's a striker, flamboyant striker. That's a fun matchup. But Gamrot, we look at Polish MMA right now, Jan Błachowicz, can't say congrats enough. He was telling me when I went out to film with Błachowicz about Gamrot coming over and how he's excited. And the UFC, even to the people in Poland, is the highest level. So he's coming in with a lot of pressure, but I think he can be a big star.
This is now the third media day we've done with talent, or third or fourth. I lose track. But none of them have brought notes.
I didn't. This is not notes. Sorry, this is the fight card. Yeah. It's just the fight card because I've gone back to back.
Sure.
I've prepared for this card before I almost prepared for the one that we did on the weekend. So now my mind is like, I'm so smoked from last weekend with all the emotions of the event itself. And so, yeah, I've just brought this just to remind myself.
Why did you prepare for one before the one that you're about to call?
Because I know that it's not the next thing coming up. So I always want to lead up to whatever I've got with the freshest memory. I haven't got like a steel trap memory like some of these other guys. I have to be the guy that revises hard. It's just how it is for me. So yeah, I get it done. And then I can just fill it all out. And plus, you guys are putting stuff out closer to fight week as well. So it's no point me spending time on the ones that are far away.
And then you talked about the calling the Buckley KO. And this Have you listened back to any of the other highlights you've called and been like, why did I say that? Any of them that's
I think the fans remind you sometimes about some of your calls. I don't really tend to labour on a lot of the stuff in the past. If there are things that the team want me to address, and if I'm honest, there's not a lot you can really do with fight calls. Again, I have a style. I've been doing this a long time. That's not going to change overnight, but how I work with the producers and my ways of getting in and out and just like telling the story better is what I'm more focused on as in terms of doing my homework and post-mortem.
And then you obviously call out fights with fellow fighters. Is it harder to call their, like if Dan comes back to fight, would it be challenging to call his fight?
I mean, it would be challenging, but I'm a pro. Like, I grew up in a small scene where I'm commentating on my coaches, another one of my coaches, the guys who I train with. I was going out researching at gyms for guys that I was calling fights for my teammates and going and training at gyms against their opponents so I could try and get a better indication of how I could bring that to commentary. So I've always had to balance that, remove myself. Modestus, who's fighting this weekend, he's from my town. And Jimmy Crute started talking some strategy. I put my hand in the air and said, I will never let any of this go into his camp, but just so you know, we're from the same team. And I'm going to be talking about the guy that is in his corner was cornering me in one of my amateur fights, or both my amateur fights. So just so you know, but I'll never let that. Like, this job and the sport's far too important to me for that.
What do you think of Paris had their first big major event? I know it wasn't UFC, but...
Yeah, long time coming. You know, a long time coming. It's from what I understand, it's been like a judo thing. So judo have a stronghold over a lot of that stuff, and people was, you know how it is, people stopping the run of mixed martial arts, and I think that's still a problem. North America, the perception is very different to what it is in the UK. They still don't know, and Europe, they still don't know what our sport is, the true nature of it, and everything in between. So it's great to see us jump these hurdles. You know, you guys had it with the New York State. You know, we're now starting to tick off places, and we've got fantastic French fighters. Cyril Gane, who's going to be fighting, is one of the top prospects in the heavyweight division right now. So when everything gets back to a more fluid schedule internationally, then, you know, we might be able to see someone like Cyril Gane headline a card in Paris. Like, how good would that be?
What's an under the radar gem that people aren't paying attention to this week on this card? Fight that maybe, you know, it's kind of flying under the radar that you think will be good.
Fight would be good. What do I think is really good? I love seeing Thomas Almeida come back as well. And like, that kid's been he's still so young. He's been getting different looks in Vegas and going up against like Jonathan Martinez, who's an enigma. Man, he was hilarious when we heard him earlier. It's like crowbarring information out of him, but he was talking about backyard brawls. He showed us videos that looked like Jorge Masvidal's type stuff. I swear to God. I'm like, dude, like, we barely had a few words out of you. You bring out this video, you show us these fights. It's like unreal. He was taking on people that have been in like juvenile detention centers, and he's calling a fixer so that he can fight these guys in a backyard situation. It's absolutely bonkers. And you see that guy, completely goes against what his personality type is. But yeah, and also I'm really excited about seeing Mark Striegel against Said Nurmagomedov, Combat Sambo for Mark Striegel as well as Nurmagomedov. He has been over to Vegas as well, but I think the Philippines have had quite different representation in the UFC to this point. He's a completely different style to what we've seen in the past. American Filipino as well, so you know he's going to be able to sell himself to all different audiences. But I'm excited to see. I like the lighter weights as well, so yeah, that's going to be a good fight.
Obviously, Tom Aspinall had another great finish as well at the weekend.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on his future in the UFC?
One thing I really like about Tom, and I think a lot of the analysts are talking about this as well, he is willing to go step by step by step, when in reality he could be calling out for people high above him in any kind of rankings, and I think the matchmakers will be going, yeah, okay, I could get on board with that. But Tom's already looking at getting that fight with Sergey Spivak that he missed out on. Or was it Carlos Felipe who's like, oh, I could fight him, he wouldn't put a glove on me. Let me fight him. Because he wants to earn his reps. He was a guy that wasn't getting a lot of looks on the local scene. That he just couldn't find fights. And I know that his coach wanted another 12 months before he came to the UFC. But you got to keep these guys being fed. So he was always UFC ready. I think Team Cowbon wanted him to like smash the top 15 when he came here. But they like got the reins on him, and he seems like he's okay with that. So good luck to him. He's got a long career. He's a young guy. Very exciting. You good? Thank you.